That morning, the bulldozer roared. An entire village gathered in silence. Some people climbed trees, others stood on rooftops. Women covered their mouths in disbelief. Children stopped playing. In front of the massive yellow machine stood a man who had spent 10 long years chasing a better life in Europe. His eyes never left the beautiful two-story mansion before him. It was the finest house in the village. Imported roofing sheets, Italian tiles, a black SUV parked proudly in the compound, flower gardens, marble pillars. Everything spoke of wealth, but only one person knew the terrible truth. Every block, every nail, every bag of cement had been paid for with money earned thousands of miles away. Money sent in trust, money sent to a brother. The bulldozer driver rolled down his window. Sir, are you absolutely sure? The man slowly removed his sunglasses. His voice was calm, too calm. If this house was built with my sweat, it will fall with my tears. The bulldozer engine growled louder. Inside the mansion, a woman screamed. Children cried. An old mother ran barefoot into the compound. My son, please, don't do this. The younger brother dropped to his knees. Brother, I beg you. I made a mistake. But the older brother never answered. He simply lifted one finger and pointed toward the mansion. The bulldozer began moving. 10 years earlier, when Chinedu left Nigeria for Italy, he owned almost nothing. One small traveling bag, 2 pairs of trousers, 3 shirts, one Bible his late father had given him, and a promise. I'll come back and change this family's life. His mother hugged him tightly. My son, don't forget us. I won't. His younger brother Emeka smiled proudly. Brother, leave everything to me. I'll take care of the family. I know you will. Back then, no one imagined those words would become the greatest lie of Chinedu's life. Life abroad was nothing like people imagined. Pictures on social media showed expensive cars, beautiful cities, designer clothes. Reality was different. Chinedu washed dishes, worked construction, loaded trucks at night, cleaned warehouses before sunrise. Some days, he worked 16 hours without sitting down. Winter froze his fingers until they bled. Summer burned his skin. He missed birthdays, Christmas, funerals, weddings, everything. His friends bought expensive phones he bought over time. Every extra euro meant one more bag of cement back home, one more window, one more step toward the dream house he had promised himself. Every month, without fail, he sent money home. Emeka, I've transferred 2,000 euros. Buy 20 bags of cement. No problem, brother. The workers are waiting. Another month. I've sent 3,000. We're casting the foundation. Another transfer. We've started the pillars. Another. We're roofing soon. Every conversation sounded perfect. Every update filled Chinedu with hope. One Sunday evening, his phone rang. It was Emeka. Brother, I have something to show you. He smiled. Turn the camera. The video call showed workers mixing concrete, men carrying blocks, scaffolding, fresh pillars, even a signboard with the name of a local building company. Emeka proudly walked around. You see, we've reached lintel level. Our house is becoming beautiful. Chinedu couldn't stop smiling. He even showed the video to his friends in Italy. This is my house. My younger brother is supervising everything. His friends admired him. You are lucky. Your brother is trustworthy. Chinedu nodded proudly. I trust him with my life. Months became years. The videos continued. Roofing, plastering, electrical work, painting, tiling, everything looked perfect. Whenever Chinedu asked for receipts, Emeka laughed. Brother, you don't trust me? I do. Then leave everything to me. And Chinedu always apologized. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. Back in the village, everyone knew the truth. Except Chinedu. The house in the videos was never his. It belonged to Emeka. Emeka had become a respected man. He drove expensive cars, bought designer clothes, visited clubs in the city. Friends called him chief. People assumed business was booming. Nobody asked questions. After all, everyone knew his elder brother lived abroad. Money must have been flowing. His wife, a dad's, watched everything in silence. Every bank alert, every transfer, every lie. At first, she believed her husband would eventually tell the truth. Maybe he was borrowing the money. Maybe he planned to repay it. But the lies only grew bigger. One afternoon, she asked quietly, Emeka, when will you start your brother's house? Emeka laughed. This one is already mine. She frowned. What about his own? He shrugged. He doesn't need to know. She stared at him. What do you mean? He is enjoying Europe. I'm enjoying Nigeria. We're both happy. A daisy felt cold. You can't be serious. He leaned back in his chair. By the time he comes home, I'll tell him building materials became expensive. He won't know. She whispered, but you've been sending him videos. Emeka smiled proudly. The same builders, the same workers, the same cameras. He believes everything. Adaisi looked at him as if she had never known the man she married. Years passed. Another transfer, another lie, another fake video, another promise, another excuse, another celebration. Meanwhile, the empty plot Chinedu had bought years earlier remained exactly as he had left it. Bushes, tall grass, nothing else. 10 years after leaving Nigeria, Chinedu finally called his family. His voice sounded happier than it had in years. Mother, I've done it. What have you done, my son? I've saved enough. I'm coming home. There was screaming on the other end. His mother began crying. Thank God. My son is finally coming home. Relatives celebrated. Neighbors heard the news. Even Emeka smiled. Brother, we'll give you the biggest welcome this village has ever seen. Chinedu laughed. I can't wait to sleep in my own house. For the first time in years, Emeka's smile disappeared. He looked away. His hands trembled ever so slightly, because for the first time in 10 years, the lies were about to meet the truth. The days that followed were unlike any Chinedu had experienced in 10 years. His room in Italy was no longer filled with excitement. Instead, it was filled with suitcases, boxes, gift bags. Every evening after work, he bought something for someone back home. Perfume for his mother, a wristwatch for Emeka, school bags for his nephews, a sewing machine for his younger sister, even chocolates for the neighborhood children who used to run errands for him. His roommates laughed. You're taking half of Europe back to Nigeria. Chinedu smiled. I've been away too long. I owe them. Deep inside, he couldn't wait to see the house he had built brick by brick without ever touching a single block. Meanwhile, back in the village, Emeka couldn't sleep. For 10 years, he had controlled the lies. Now, time itself had become his enemy. Every sound outside made him nervous. Every phone call made his heart race. His wife noticed, You haven't slept. I'm fine. You've been pacing all night. I'm thinking about your brother. Emeka snapped. I said I'm fine. Daisy remained quiet. She had learned long ago. Silence was safer than arguments. Later that evening, she watched him open another bank alert. The latest transfer had arrived, 5,000 euros. His face lit up. Instead of discussing building materials, he called one of his friends. Chief, the money has entered. We're going to Abuja this weekend. The usual place. The men laughed loudly. Adaisi lowered her head. She knew what the usual place meant. Another weekend, another hotel, another woman, another lie. Money that should have been buying cement would disappear into luxury. That night, she sat alone on the veranda. The village was quiet. Only crickets could be heard. Her youngest son walked outside. Mommy, why are you crying? She quickly wiped her face. I'm not crying. The little boy hugged her. Daddy shouted at you again. She forced a smile. No. The child looked innocent. When Uncle Chinedu comes, will he stay in our big house? Daisy froze. Her heart sank. Even the children believed the mansion belonged to Chinedu because that was what Emeka had always told everyone. She looked toward the beautiful building standing proudly under the moonlight. Then she whispered to herself, this house was built with another man's suffering. For 3 more days, her conscience refused to let her rest. She remembered every transfer, every lie, every fake video, every promise. She remembered Chinedu calling from Italy during winter, his hands shaking from the cold, his face exhausted. Yet he still smiled. Tell the workers not to stop. I'll send more money next month. She remembered Emeka ending the call, then laughing. He still believes me. That memory haunted her. On the 4th night, she made a decision, one she knew could destroy her marriage forever. She waited until everyone was asleep. She quietly picked up her phone, locked herself inside the kitchen. Her hands trembled. She searched for a number she had never called before. Chinedu. She stared at the screen for almost 2 minutes. She couldn't press the button. Then she whispered a prayer. God, if I remain silent, I become part of this evil. She pressed call. Thousands of kilometers away, Chinedu was folding clothes into a suitcase. His phone vibrated. Unknown Nigerian number. He almost ignored it. Instead, he answered. Hello? Silence. Then a soft female voice. Brother Chinedu. He frowned. Who's speaking? It's Adais. My brother's wife? Yes. He smiled. Adais? How are the children? She couldn't answer. Instead, he heard her crying. His smile disappeared. What's wrong? Is mother okay? Did something happen? No. It's about you. Chinedu sat down slowly. My wife has never called me before. Tell me. She struggled to breathe. What I'm about to say? I may lose my marriage because of it, but I cannot continue carrying this burden. His heartbeat quickened. What burden? She closed her eyes, then said the words that changed everything. Brother, there is no house. The room became completely silent. Chinedu thought he had heard wrongly. I'm sorry? There is no house. He laughed nervously. What do you mean? You people finished roofing years ago. She cried harder. No, you never built any house. The suitcase slipped from Chinedu's hand. Clothes scattered across the floor. He didn't notice. His voice became weak. Adaize. I've seen videos. I've seen workers. I've seen tiles. I've seen roofing. They were all fake. He couldn't breathe. No, they were videos of Emeka's own house. For almost a full minute, neither of them spoke. Then Chinedu whispered, My land, it's still empty. My money, she closed her eyes. He built his mansion. He bought 2 cars. He opened a supermarket. He bought another plot. He spent heavily. There are women. There are parties. Everything came from the money you sent. Chinedu stared into space. His mind refused to accept it. 10 years. 10 years of sacrifice. Gone. Finally, he asked, "Why are you telling me this?" Ade's answer through tears, "Because I don't want the punishment for this wickedness to reach me or my children." I warned him many times. He refused. "I have carried this secret for years. I cannot carry it anymore," she continued. "When you arrive, don't tell anyone, not even your mother. Don't even tell Emeka. Come straight from the airport. Go to your land first. See it with your own eyes. If I'm lying, leave Nigeria immediately and never trust my words again." Chinedu's hands shook uncontrollably. He wanted to ask 100 questions. Instead, only one came out. "Is there truly nothing on my land?" Adaisi whispered. "Only grass and weeds." The call ended. Chinedu remained seated. He didn't move. He didn't cry. He simply stared at the wall. An entire decade replayed in his mind. The freezing winters, the double shifts, the birthdays he missed, the funeral of his father that he watched through a phone screen because he couldn't afford to come home. Every sacrifice, every transfer, every fake smile, every lie. Suddenly, he stood up, walked to his wardrobe, pulled out a folder. Inside were years of bank transfer receipts, every euro, every transaction, every date. He spread them across the bed, one after another, the evidence of 10 years. Then he quietly picked up his phone. He opened the family WhatsApp group. His finger hovered over the keyboard. He wanted to ask, "Emeka, where is my house?" Instead, he locked the phone. "No," he whispered. "If this is true, they must never know I'm coming." The following morning, everyone in the family received the same cheerful message. "My flight has been postponed because of work. I'll let everyone know the new date soon. I miss you all." His mother replied with crying emojis. Relatives sent prayers. Emeka smiled with relief. Thank God. I still have time. But what he didn't know was that Chinedu had already changed his ticket. He wasn't postponing his trip. He was arriving 48 hours earlier. And this time, no one would be waiting for him. 2 days later, at exactly 5:40 a.m., a plane from Rome landed at the international airport in Lagos. Passengers applauded softly as the aircraft came to a stop. Among them was Chinedu. He carried only one suitcase. No excitement, no smile, no family waiting with flowers, no celebration. Only one question echoed inside his mind. Was my own brother really capable of this? He switched on his Nigerian phone. Within seconds, messages flooded in. His mother, his cousins, his church members, old friends, everyone believed he was still in Italy. He ignored every message. Instead, he hired a driver. "Good morning, sir. Where are we going?" Chinedu looked out of the window. "East," the driver smiled. "Going home after many years?" Chinedu nodded quietly. 10 years, the driver laughed. "Then your village must have changed," Chinedu whispered. "I hope not." The journey was long. As the city disappeared behind them, old memories returned. The roadside markets where he used to buy roasted corn, the abandoned primary school, the old bridge where he and Emeka once fished as children. He smiled for a brief second. Then the smile disappeared. He remembered another promise. "Brother, when I become rich, I'll build us the finest house in this village." Back then, Emeka had hugged him, We'll grow old together. Hours later, the taxi turned onto the dusty village road. Children ran behind the vehicle. Goats crossed lazily. Women balanced baskets on their heads. Everything looked familiar. Everything except Chinedu. 10 years abroad had changed him. No one recognized the quiet man behind the tinted windows. He preferred it that way. The taxi stopped. "This is the road you described." Chinedu slowly stepped out. His heart pounded so loudly he could hear it. He looked ahead. Beyond the bushes lay the piece of land he had bought before leaving Nigeria, the land that was supposed to hold his dream home. He walked slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. 20 steps, 30, 40. Then he stopped. There was nothing. No foundation, no fence, no pillars, no roofing sheets, nothing. Only tall grass, wild weeds, and a faded signboard leaning sideways. The same signboard the surveyor had planted 10 years ago. It was almost buried beneath overgrown shrubs. The silence was unbearable. Chinedu dropped to one knee. He touched the dry earth. His fingers trembled. He whispered, "I sent enough money to build 3 houses." A tear rolled down his cheek, then another. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times. He thought he would return home, unlock the gate, walk to the front door. Thank God for bringing him back safely. Instead, he was kneeling in an empty field. The taxi driver stood at a distance. He didn't understand. "Sir, is this the wrong land?" Chinedu looked up slowly. "No, it's the right land." "The wrong brother." For several minutes, he remained there. Then, he remembered Adaize's final words. "Go and see his house." He stood up, wiped his face, picked up his suitcase. "Take me to Emeka's house." The driver immediately smiled. "Oh, you know Chief Emeka?" Chinedu looked at him. "Chief?" "Yes, everybody knows Chief. He built one of the finest houses around here. People say God has really blessed him." Those words pierced Chinedu's heart like a knife. The taxi drove less than 5 minutes before slowing down. The driver pointed ahead. "There it is." Chinedu looked through the windshield, and his breath caught. Standing proudly behind a beautifully painted fence was a magnificent 2-story mansion, imported stone finish, glass balconies, decorative lights, palm trees lining the driveway, a brand new black SUV parked on the recovered garage. Everything looked exactly like the videos. The same pillars, the same staircase, the same roofing, the same compound, the same house he had admired on every video call. The only difference, it had never belonged to him. The driver smiled. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Chinedu couldn't answer. He simply stared. His knees almost gave way. Every fake video, every smiling update, every lie was standing before him in concrete. Suddenly, the large gate opened. A shiny SUV rolled out. Behind it walked Emeka, dressed in expensive traditional attire, gold wristwatch, designer sunglasses, car keys spinning around his finger, laughing with 2 friends. He looked successful, confident, untouchable. He had no idea. His elder brother was standing barely 20 meters away, watching him. For a moment, Chinedu wanted to run toward him, to grab him by the shirt, to demand answers. Instead, he remained perfectly still. He wanted to see just how far the lies had gone. Emeka's friend laughed loudly. "Chief, when are you starting your second building project?" Emeka grinned. "Soon. This village hasn't seen anything yet." The men laughed together. Chinedu closed his eyes. Second building project? His first wasn't enough. Just then, the front door opened again. Adeze stepped outside. She was carrying groceries. She looked tired. As she lifted her head, her eyes met Chinedu's. Everything around her froze. The grocery bag slipped from her hands. Tomatoes rolled across the compound. For several seconds, neither of them moved. She knew. He knew. The truth had finally arrived. Emeka noticed her staring. He turned around. "What are you looking?" His words stopped. His face turned pale. The car keys slipped from his hand. They landed on the driveway with a sharp metallic sound. "Brother," his voice cracked. "Chinedu." The world seemed to stand still. Neighbors began noticing. "Isn't that Chinedu? The one abroad?" He came back. People slowly gathered outside their compounds. Within minutes, half the street was watching. Emeka forced a smile. "Brother, you should have told us you were coming. We would have welcomed you properly." He stretched out his arms for a hug. Chinedu didn't move. Instead, he looked past him at the mansion, then quietly asked, "It's beautiful." Emeka smiled nervously. "Thank you. I've worked very hard." Chinedu nodded. "You have." A long silence followed. Then he asked the question everyone feared. "Where is my house?" No one spoke. Even the birds seemed to disappear. Emeka swallowed hard. "Brother, I can explain." "Can you?" "The price of materials went up." "So, you forgot to lay one block?" Emeka wiped sweat from his forehead. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Their mother suddenly appeared at the gate. Someone had run to tell her. "My son!" She rushed toward Chinedu, crying, holding him tightly. "My son has finally come home." Chinedu hugged her gently, then asked, "Mother, have you ever visited my house?" She smiled proudly. "Of course. I've seen the pictures." He looked into her eyes. "No, I asked if you've ever visited it." Her smile slowly faded. She looked toward Emeka, then back at Chinedu. I thought it was still under construction." Chinedu closed his eyes. Even their own mother had been deceived. The villagers began whispering, "What is happening? Something isn't right. Why is Chinedu asking about his house?" Emeka looked around nervously. He realized the secret was slipping away. He stepped closer. "Brother, let's go inside. We'll talk privately." Chinedu shook his head. "No. We've hidden this for 10 years. Today, the truth will stand in the open." He slowly reached into his suitcase. Everyone watched. He pulled out a thick brown file, worn from years of use. Transfer receipts, bank statements, Western Union slips, every payment, every euro, every sacrifice. He held them up. "I didn't bring clothes home first. I brought the evidence." The entire village square fell silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the gentle rustling of leaves as Chinedu slowly opened the brown file. Inside were hundreds of documents, every bank transfer, every receipt, every money transfer confirmation, every single payment he had made over 10 years. He held up the first receipt. 5,000 euros. He looked at Emeka. "What did you tell me this money was for?" Emeka swallowed. "The foundation." Another receipt. 3,500 euros. "What about this one?" "The roofing." Another. 6,000 euros. "What did you buy with this?" "The tiles." Another. 4,000. "The windows." Another. 7,000. "The electrical work." Chinedu stopped. His voice remained calm, almost too calm. "I have 143 transfers here. If every one of them built my house, why is my land still covered with grass?" The villagers looked at one another. Someone whispered, 143 transfers? Another shook his head. "How much money is that?" An elderly man sighed, "Enough to build 3 mansions." Emeka tried to smile. Brother, I was going to explain. Chinedu looked directly into his eyes. You've had 10 years. The mother stepped forward. Her hands trembled. My sons, please, let's settle this as a family. Chinedu turned toward her. Mama, I left this village with one bag. I missed father's burial. I worked until my hands bled. I trusted my own brother. He paused. If a stranger had stolen from me, I would have healed. But my own blood. His voice finally broke. My own blood buried me alive while I was still breathing. The old woman covered her face and burst into tears. By now, almost the entire village had gathered. Some people stood on fences. Others climbed unfinished buildings just to watch. Everyone knew something historic was unfolding. Then, a familiar voice came from behind the crowd. Move! People stepped aside. It was a Daisy. She walked slowly, head lowered. She stopped beside Chinedu, then turned toward everyone. I have something to say. Emeka shouted immediately. A Daisy, keep quiet. She ignored him. For the first time since their marriage, she wasn't afraid. I watched every transfer. I watched every lie. I begged my husband to stop. He refused. I told him one day the truth would find him. She pointed toward the mansion, everything inside that house. The furniture, the tiles, the generator, the SUV, the borehole were paid for with Chinedu's money. Gasps spread through the crowd. Emeka's face darkened. You wicked woman. You want to destroy your own husband? Adaisi turned to him. No. You destroyed yourself. I only refused to follow you. The villagers began murmuring loudly. I always wondered where his money came from. So it was true. God have mercy. One elderly mason slowly raised his hand. I want to speak. Everyone recognized him. He had been one of the oldest builders in the community. He walked forward slowly. His face was filled with shame. I supervised this building. He pointed toward the mansion. Who hired you? Chinedu asked. Emeka. And who paid you? The old mason hesitated, then answered. The money always came from abroad. A loud murmur swept through the crowd. The mason continued. Every month, he would receive money. The next morning, he would pay workers. We all believed it belonged to him. I never knew. It belonged to his brother. Another man stepped forward. The building contractor. He removed his cap. I also want to confess. The villagers became even quieter. I was the one recording those construction videos. Everyone looked at him. I thought they were being sent to the owner overseas. I never knew. The owner was someone else. He lowered his head. When I discovered the truth, the building was already completed. Emeka suddenly exploded. All of you are lying. You're against me. You have no proof. Chinedu slowly smiled. No proof? He removed another document, bank statements, printed emails, transfer confirmations. Then he produced something unexpected, a flash drive. Emeka frowned. What's that? The videos, the ones you sent me. He looked toward the villagers. I kept every single one. I also kept every voice note. He played one. Emeka's recorded voice echoed across the compound. Brother, we have just finished roofing your house. Another. The Italian tiles have arrived. Another. We're painting your sitting room. Another. You'll be proud when you come home. Silence. Nobody could defend him anymore. Just then, a police pickup arrived. The village chairman had already reported the disturbance. 2 officers stepped out. What is happening here? Before anyone could answer, Chinedu handed them the file. I want to report a fraud. Emeka laughed nervously. You can't arrest your own brother. One officer looked through the documents, then asked, Did you receive these funds? Emeka remained silent, answered the question. Yes. Did you use them for the purpose stated? Silence. The officer looked at him again. Answer. No. The entire village gasped. For the first time, he had admitted it. The officers asked everyone to accompany them to the station. Statements were taken. Builders were interviewed. Transfer records were examined. Bank officials confirmed years of international payments. The evidence continued growing. Every road led back to Emeka. Weeks turned into months. The case eventually reached the High Court. People traveled from neighboring communities to witness it. Some newspapers even reported it. Many called it the brother who stole 10 years. Inside the courtroom, Emeka's lawyer stood confidently. My lord, this was a family arrangement. There was no written contract. The lawyer smiled proudly. There is no evidence that my client agreed to build any specific house. For a moment, it seemed the case had changed direction. Then, Chinedu's lawyer stood. My lord, we would like to play one final recording. The courtroom became quiet. A voice filled the speakers. It was Emeka, clear, confident, recorded years earlier. Brother, don't worry. I have just locked your front door. Tomorrow, we'll start installing your kitchen cabinets. The judge slowly removed his glasses. He looked at Emeka. So, you admit you represented that you were constructing his house? Emeka lowered his head. He couldn't answer. The judge repeated the question. Still, silence. The judge wrote something in his notebook. At that moment, everyone in the courtroom knew the case was over. The courtroom was so quiet. You could hear the ceiling fan turning above everyone's heads. Every eye was fixed on the judge. For nearly 6 months, the case had dominated conversations across the state. Some called Chinedu heartless for taking his own brother to court. Others believed justice had finally caught up with greed. Now, the truth would no longer belong to remorse. It would belong to the law. The judge adjusted his glasses. He looked first at Chinedu, then at Emeka. Finally, he began to read. Having examined the bank records, the witness testimonies, the contractor's evidence, the audio recordings, and the admissions made before this court, I find that the claimant, Mr. Chinedu Okafor, provided the overwhelming majority of the funds used in constructing the disputed property. The courtroom fell completely silent. The judge continued. The defendant knowingly misrepresented the progress of construction over several years and diverted the claimant's money for his own benefit. He paused, then delivered the words everyone had been waiting to hear. This court declares that the property known as Plot 18 Umudara Village, together with the building standing upon it, belongs to the claimant. A gasp swept across the courtroom. Emeka slowly lowered his head. His shoulders collapsed. The judge wasn't finished. The defendant shall vacate the property within 30 days. The claimant is entitled to possession, and the defendant shall bear the costs awarded by this court. The gavel struck. Judgment entered. Outside the courtroom, journalists surrounded Chinedu. Sir, what will you do with the house? Will you move in? Will you forgive your brother? He didn't answer. He simply walked away. News spread through Umudara faster than Hamatan fire. Chinedu has won. The mansion now belongs to him. People celebrated. Many believed the story was over. They were wrong. 30 days later, a convoy entered the village. The first vehicle carried court officials, the second carried police officers, the third was a massive yellow bulldozer. Children chased after it. Women abandoned their cooking. Men left their farms. Within minutes, the entire village surrounded the mansion. Emeka stood outside the gate. His belongings had already been moved out. Old sofas, beds, wardrobes, children's bicycles, everything lay in neat piles by the roadside. His eyes were swollen. He hadn't slept. His children clung to their mother. Adaeze held them close. She looked at Chinedu with quiet sorrow, not because justice had come, but because sin had destroyed their family. Their mother pushed through the crowd. She fell to her knees before Chinedu. "My son, you have won. Please, move into the house. Don't destroy it. It is still your house." Relatives joined her. "Elder brother, enough. Let peace return. The children have suffered enough." Even village elders spoke. "Son, bitterness builds nothing. Take the house. Start your life." Chinedu looked at the mansion. For a long time, he said nothing. He slowly walked toward the gate. He touched one of the marble pillars. His fingers rested on the polished stone. He remembered every winter morning in Italy, every double shift, every meal he skipped, every Christmas spent alone, every birthday he missed, every euro he had sent with joy. He closed his eyes, then opened them again. He turned to the crowd. "When I first left this village, I believed poverty was the hardest thing a man could face." He looked at Emeka. "I was wrong. The hardest thing is betrayal from the person you trusted most." No one spoke. He continued, "This house is beautiful, but every block reminds me of a lie. Every wall reminds me of a fake video. Every room reminds me of 10 stolen years." He looked toward the children. "They are innocent." He looked toward Adaeze. "So is she." Then he looked back at the mansion. But this building was born from deceit. The bulldozer operator stepped forward. "Sir, the court officials are waiting for your instruction." The entire village held its breath. The operator asked again, "What are your orders?" Chinedu took a deep breath. His voice remained steady. "This house was built with stolen sweat. My children will never call it home." He slowly raised his right hand, then pointed toward the mansion. "Bring it down." The bulldozer engine roared. A deep rumble echoed across the village. Emeka suddenly screamed, "No!" He ran forward. Police officers restrained him. He struggled desperately. "Brother, I've lost everything. Please, I'll repay you. I beg you." His voice cracked into uncontrollable sobs. For the first time, the proud man everyone called Chief looked completely broken. The bulldozer's steel blade pressed against the front wall. There was a loud crack, then another. The decorative pillars split apart. Glass windows shattered into thousands of pieces. Dust rose into the sky. Women screamed. Children cried. The once proud balcony collapsed with a deafening roar. People instinctively stepped back. The mansion that had taken years to build began disappearing in minutes. Their mother covered her face. "My sons, what has greed done to us?" She wept until she could barely stand. Village elders lowered their heads. No one celebrated. Justice had come. But it carried sorrow with it. Chinedu stood motionless. A single tear rolled down his cheek. One of the police officers quietly asked, "Sir, are you all right?" He answered without taking his eyes off the falling house. "No, I don't think I ever will be." When the bulldozer finally stopped, nothing remained except broken concrete, twisted iron rods, and clouds of settling dust. The finest mansion in Umudara was gone. Emeka dropped to his knees. He stared at the ruins, then looked at his elder brother. I thought you would forgive me. Chinedu slowly walked towards him. He stood only a few feet away. I have forgiven you. Emeka looked up in surprise. Chinedu continued. Forgiveness released my heart, but forgiveness does not erase consequences. He placed a hand briefly on Emeka's shoulder. The day you chose greed over your brother, you started destroying this house yourself. He turned toward Adais. Thank you. She lowered her head. I only told the truth. Chinedu smiled sadly. You saved what remained of your children's honor. She began to cry quietly. As the crowd slowly dispersed, an elderly village chief spoke to the young men standing nearby. Listen carefully. A stranger may steal your money, but only someone close to you can steal your trust. And when trust dies, no amount of wealth can rebuild it. The young men nodded silently. They would never forget what they had witnessed. Months later, Chinedu returned to the empty plot he had bought 10 years earlier, the same land where this painful journey had truly begun. This time, construction workers were there, not on someone else's property, on his own. A modest, single-story home slowly rose from the foundation. No marble pillars, no imported chandeliers, no grand balconies, just a solid house built with honesty. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, a neighbor asked him, You could have built another mansion. Chinedu smiled. I've learned something. A home built with peace is worth far more than a palace built with betrayal. He picked up a trowel and laid another block himself. For the first time in many years, his heart felt lighter, not because he had destroyed a house, but because he had finally stopped living inside the ruins of a lie. Moral lesson: money can build walls, but only honesty can build a home. Betrayal may prosper for a season, but truth has a way of arriving, often when it is least expected. And while forgiveness heals the heart, it does not always remove the consequences of our choices.